Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sociology Analytica. This is Pooja Prasanna, your sociology faculty. So, today onwards, we'll be starting with our sociological thinkers. So, I'm going to start with Karl Marx. Okay. So, what I have decided is for every thinker, I'll be discussing at least three questions. Okay. So, Karl Marx, I'll be discussing three questions. So, the first question from Karl Marx I've given is that Karl Marx laid out a radical view of society, but lost its relevance in the 21st century, examined for 10 marks. That is Marx's idea. So Marx's idea, what type of idea he gave? He gave a radical ideology or radical view of society that we all know. But though he gave this radical view of society, but that couldn't sustain for a longer time period. What Karl Marx envisaged is that it is going to sustain and society is going to change. This is what he saw, how society is going to change. But did it change that way? No, actually the society did not change in that way. So this question is asking that please discuss about these things, how society did not change the way Karl Marx envisaged. Okay. So this is a 10 marks question. That means you have to write around 150 words. It's actually a simple question. The thing is, this question is more or less like a summary of Karl Marx, summary and assessment of Karl Marx. Okay, so this is what you have to write. So what I would say is, like, start your introduction with what did Karl Marx do? That is the basic aspect of Karl Marx, okay, or the basic aspect of Marxian theory. So what I have done here is, I've taken the statements like Karl Marx has laid down the foundation for what? Conflict perspective. This is what he did in modern sociology, which nobody else had done before him. I mean, at least on a larger scale. Next, what I have pointed out here is, he has highlighted the role of economic factors in shaping the other institutions of the society or other infrastructure of the society. So, previously, people never studied from economic perspective. It was actually Karl Marx for the first time who studied that the other institutions of society is actually controlled by the economical infrastructure. So this is actually the most important point you have to write whenever you talk about Karl Marx. The next point I have written here is that his conception of class and class conflict. So through this concept of class and class conflict, he has highlighted, what did he highlight? He highlighted the dialectical nature of stratification in society. That is, he explains about bourgeois and proletariats and their struggle, etc., etc. See, the question is not about explain the views of Karl Marx. No, the question is about how Karl Marx ideology did not sustain with the time. So please don't write too much about the ideology, just write few statements, however you can think of, that is more than sufficient, and subsequently go with how it did not sustain. Okay, so now let's go to the part where the reasons why or the way it lost its relevance. So for this particular thing, how to write? Answer is that, see, you may not have studied this as a separate topic altogether, but then you would have studied this under the criticism, like that is many thinkers would have criticized Karl Marx, that how Karl Marx theory did not sustain. So what you have to do is, when you study Karl Marx in whole, please pick the criticism or some points from here and there, and then you have to write this. Okay. So in order to write this question, you need to know the full of Karl Marx concepts and full of what? Full of his critics. Then only you will be able to write this question. So what you can also write this, how it lost its relevance from a generalized perspective, general points. But what I suggest you is, especially for a thinker like Karl Marx, it's always better to put some critic's name. With the critic's name, you will be getting more marks. So here I have taken few critics and how they have showed that that is Marxism lost its relevancy. The first and foremost I have taken is Melvin Digelis. So Melvin Digelis, what he says that, or he calls Karl Marx as a utopian thinker. Why? Because we have seen lot of communist society, that is emergence of communist society, but then these communist society itself did not take up or continue with the Marxist ideology. Okay, here I have taken example of China. So China is a communist society, but then here in China we can see what? We can see state capitalism. That is, see, instead of the other capitalist, having, other capitalist, the state itself is acting like a capitalist. So we see state capitalism in China. But then what does Karl Marx say? Karl Marx say that once, we move to communist society, there will not be any state. Understand? So in this way, Karl Marx was wrong. In this way, Karl Marx relevancy is coming down. The next point here is, see, proletariat. What Karl Marx predicts, that proletariat will unite, they will topple down the capitalist society or capitalist, and then it will lead to what? Socialism, eventually leading to communism. This is what Karl Marx says. But then, has it ever happened now? Has it the whole of proletariats united, the proletariats of world united? No, they never united. You can write this as a point. The next point I have taken here from Goldthorpe. So Goldthorpe has done a study on affluent workers. It is a study, or the book name, it is Affluent Workers Study. What he has pointed out that, see, what Karl Marx says is that work is end in itself. For Karl Marx, work is end in itself, or the labor is end in itself. So for Karl Marx, the whole of worker's life or the whole of labor's life, it always revolves around the work or the labor. This is how Karl Marx studies. But then Goldthorpe is telling that, see, that is technically not true. Work is just a means to an end. What is an end? Your end might be being happy, having a better, living standard, having a happy life with your family, okay, or buying a property. All this might be our end. So work is just a means to an end. The next point is given by Robert Blauner. Robert Blauner, he has written a book called as Alienation and Freedom. So in this, Blauner actually talks about alienation, and what he says is that, see, alienation is not same for everyone. So Karl Marx says, once you enter the factory system, so all the workers will face the same amount of alienation. This is what Karl Marx generalizes. But then Blauner says that is actually not true. See, some technology where the worker will have, if the worker has complete control on the technology, okay, for example, see, lot of in service industry, so they will be working in a computer, they will be working in a laptop, they will be working on a software, where the worker is having complete control on whatever he is doing. So what Blauner says, in these cases, the alienation is less. Whereas in manufacturing sector, the worker goes, just switch on the machine and switch off the machine. So here worker do not have control. So here there's a possibility of high alienation. So alienation is not same. And as world is slowly shifting to service sector, so what Blauner is telling, that the alienation, what Karl Marx predicted, it actually came down. Okay, so whatever he believed it is going to happen, that did not happen, because in service sector because of the technology which is used in service sector, the alienation is drastically less. The next point is given by Dahrendorf. So Dahrendorf, he talks about that, see, working class, see, previously when Karl Marx was alive, the working class was it was homogeneous. But now the working class is no more homogeneous. The working class itself has become heterogeneous. That is, they are having dissimilar interest. So many different variety of industries have come, so many different formal sector, informal sector, many different sectors are coming. Okay, now there is a gig economy. So whatever the problems faced by gig economy, you can also add gig economy here also. So whatever problem is the gig workers are facing, the same problem other industrialist worker is not facing. So there is so much of heterogeneity or dissimilarity. So that is why workers are not uniting anymore in 21st century. Okay, the last point what I have taken is from Weber. Weber says, see, this Karl Marx talks about polarization, class polarization, that is, as alienation increases, there will be class polarization, there will be finally two class, and they will fight, or they will revolt against each other. This is what Karl Marx talks about. But then what Weber says is that whosoever is in the middle, okay, he talks about middle petit bourgeois, who are actually in the middle section of the class fold. What he says is that, see, petit bourgeois will never come down to the proletariat stage. What they will do, they'll try to go up in the ladder rather than coming down. So they will try to achieve more and more, they'll try to gain more and more skill, and they'll become propertied white collar worker rather than coming down and becoming a working class. And if you see in 21st century, the working class members are coming down, whereas the white collar workers are actually growing. So that is why Karl Marx theory doesn't apply or is not so much relevant in the 21st century. What you can conclude is that we can conclude that yes, though Karl Marx has talked about no, it is no longer relevant, but then Karl Marx theory has been taken over, or it has been updated or taken over, or it has been at least influenced some of other sociologists, and they have used this under Karl Marxian theory in order to understand further. So here I have taken Dahrendorf, who have studied the modern industrial society, or you can add the critical theorist, that is critical theory of Frankfurt School. You can give some example like Adorno, Habermas, etc., etc. So along with Marxian theory, what they have done, they have also added the socio-psychological aspect to the Marxian theory. So basically they are improving Marxian theory, they are utilizing Marxian theory and trying to understand the recent society. Okay, so in this note you can end this particular question. Okay, did you understand this? In case if you have any doubt, please drop your queries in the comment section. Okay, thank you so much.